Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so glad that you decided to join us here today at the Ordway with our live engagement with Z Puppets. My name is Maya, and on behalf of myself, Dana, Sarah, and Chloe, we'd like to welcome you to our conversation with Z Puppets, Chris and Shari, and Šišóka from the University of Minnesota and New Native Theater, I should say. So we're going to get started here first with a land acknowledgement, and then we will go into a nice little trailer video to start off our conversation. Šišóka?
Midaki api ampeti washte wana Dakota makoche etaha wo unhidakapi. I want to acknowledge we're talking to you today from Dakota Territory here in the Twin Cities, Minnesota.
And Osio Negada, Chris Griffith, Tawadoa Chichalagi. Hello, everybody. My name is Chris Griffith, and I'm a member of the Cherokee Nation. And I'm here with Shari Aronson, also of Z Puppets. And we live and work in Dakota Territory in Minneapolis, but today we're actually zooming in from the traditional homelands of the Tohono O'odham, the Hohokam, and the Pasquale in Tucson, Arizona.
Thank you, everybody. Now we're going to go into a trailer that is Sarah is going to put on our trailer for a little vibe type thing we got going on. So Sarah, take it away.
Say in Cherokee when you're meeting someone new, there's got to be a different way to say how do you do. When you make a friend in Cherokee, do you really want to know? You just smile and you nod and you wave and then you tell them OCO! OCO, 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 OCO. That's what we say in Cherokee when we want to say hello. OCO, OCO. OCO, OCO. Greetings, salutations, howdy, hi, it's OCO.
Thanks, Sarah. And OCO, everybody. Now we already know one word, right? OCO. And again, this is such an important conversation about language revitalization. And Šišóka, Chris, and Shari, I'm going to have you guys take it away in terms of tell us a little bit more about yourselves, what you do, and why this topic is important. And Šišóka is our host for today, and he will take it away and talk more about what's going on in this area of language revitalization with Chris and Shari.
Oh, Maya, Maya, thank you for that. Yes, OCO to all of you, and how Medakuyepi from Dakota language. Hello to all of you. Just a little bit about myself, and then I'll let Chris and Shari introduce themselves. Šišóka Dúta Miedo, Damakota Berehadakia Oyanke Edomawapi ka Emataha Minnesota wo unspe wankantia ed Dawani Dakota Yapi wa unspe wichakia hemacha Dakota Yapi kinde nina tewachinda Petu kinde Cherokee Yapi ka nakon Dakota Yapi wonharakapte. So I say hello to all of you. I'm Šišóka Dúta, that's my name, and I am Dakota from the Lake Traverse Reservation in South Dakota, and I work at the University of Minnesota teaching Dakota language. And today we're going to be talking about Cherokee and Dakota language. So Also, say it, sing it, play it. We're going to be talking about that too. So let Chris and Shari introduce yourselves.
All right. As I said, I'm Chris Griffith. I'm part of Z Puppets Rosenschnoz together with Shari Aronson, my wife and creative partner. And we've created this show, Say It, Sing It, Play It in Cherokee, to try to engage and excite people about the idea of learning an Indigenous language, particularly a language that is endangered. Right now, there are, despite the Cherokee tribe being one of the largest tribes in the country, there are only about 2,000 people who speak Cherokee. And there's actually 3 federally recognized Cherokee tribes, and they jointly declared a state of emergency for the language about 3 years ago. And at that point, I sort of started to realize the urgency that was behind the need to learn the language. And we have been doing puppetry together for over 20 years now. And it's been in the back of my mind that at some point I wanted to kind of mingle the work I was doing with puppetry and education and the work I was doing learning the Cherokee language. I'm still a student of the Cherokee language, and I wanted to put those together, and decided that this was the perfect time to do that. And so that's why this project came about.
And I'm Shari, and our mission together has been to bring people of all ages and abilities into the power of playfulness. And we do that through performances and education. And one of the things that comes back to us all the time throughout our career of working together has been that families tell us that they repeat jokes and lines from our show or for the songs in our show for years afterwards to each other. So then we had to think, well, what messages do we want people to come back to again and again? If we're sticky, what do we want to stick from the work that we do? So that is where part of how we came into Say It, Sing It, Play It in Cherokee.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, that's very interesting. And you had mentioned there that you've been touring this show, but now you're streaming online this show. So you mentioned a little bit about the goals there, but why did you take this all online? And maybe you could expand more on the goals of the show.
Sure. Yeah, so we have a live version of the show, and we also have a virtual version. And Say It, Sing It, Play It in Cherokee was a show that I created, and it's a musical adventure into the Cherokee language, and it features a rabbit and a turtle. So if you picture Shari from now on with bunny ears, and me from now on with a giant turtle shell on my back. It features original music and songs that I wrote that kind of take some key pieces and elements of the Cherokee language and to try to get people engaged in them. With a lot of our work that we've done previously, we dive into pretty complex ideas and we try to simplify them, not to water them down at all, but to really excite people to want to learn more and to dive deeper into them. And that's one of the things that I think we were able to do really well. And so with the language, we wanted to get across that it's important to learn Indigenous languages and to even just to hear the sounds of Indigenous languages. That's one thing at Šišóka. I really loved your introduction, even though I don't speak Dakota. Just to hear the sound of it is so critical and important, even if we don't understand what it is that we're hearing. That's been one of the driving things for me in creating this performance.
And for making a transformation to virtual, we've been doing more and more work with video over the past several years, and then so we're pretty prepared to jump in more with COVID. But with this show in particular, it lets us reach more people because there's Cherokee people all across the world, and there aren't a high number of Cherokee people where we are in Minnesota, where we live in Minnesota. So to have a recorded version, that an online version can be really helpful in to transcending geographic barriers, but also let us get into the world of the turtle and rabbit even more in the imaginary realm that we bring the language into.
Yeah, pretty early on, we decided we didn't want to just turn a camera on and do our show for the camera. We wanted to create an experience that was built for the camera, for the screen. And what we discovered is doing that, it allowed us to do things that we couldn't do in a live performance and to go places that we couldn't go. And so that just kind of gave us more room to expand with the show.
And then I did see, after the fact, I did see an article about language revitalization, that recording language is really important to just make sure it reaches into the future. If you get to the point where there's no live people near you who can speak it to you, then recorded versions are really important.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. Because like what you're doing is every little piece is helping keep the language alive, not only for now but future generations. And we have to use all forms of media. We can't just rely on one form, because then we will reach more people if we expand. So I really like what you're doing here. So one of your missions is to bring people into the power of playfulness. Why bring playfulness into teaching the Cherokee language?
Yeah, well, for one thing, I really believe in the power of play, and I think that the best learning occurs when you're in a playful state. And so when you're not, that we all carry this voice in our head that's kind of a critic, or that kind of says, "Ooh, that wasn't right," or "that wasn't," and you can't have that critic on and have playfulness exist in the same moment. So when you're in a playful mind, you kind of turn that critic off, and then you start to explore, and you start to things sink in deeper, I think. That's been my experience as a learner, and as a teacher also. I try to cultivate that sense of play. I think when we laugh together, that's a building block to being able to play together, and it's a building block to building communities and to creating connections between people on a very deep level. So I could talk for hours just about that, but in terms of language especially, I think it's one thing to hear the language, it's another thing to say the language, and then to speak it. And then it's still another thing to be able to play with the language and to be able to get to that playful place with a new language, where you're turning that critic off, even if you're mispronouncing the words, even if you're not remembering the correct words or the right ways to say it. If you're in that playful state, one of the reasons that I've been drawn to the characters of Turtle and Rabbit, not just because they're traditional, but if you think of kind of the stereotype of a turtle, is that it's slow, right? But it's slow and steady. So you just one step at a time, and it gets to where it needs to go. And I think that's a really useful idea to think about when we're talking about language, is just one step at a time, and we'll get there. So in our show, we try to start with just the basic sounds of the language, just hearing the vowels and the sounds of the syllabary, which is kind of like an equivalent of an English alphabet, but it's all the sounds of the Cherokee language in one place, and one chart that was created about 200 years ago by Sequoia. And just starting with the syllabary and the basic sounds, and then you put two sounds or more sounds together to make a word. And then you start to explore the words. And so we try to do that in a playful way, and try to invite people to laugh along with us and to play along with us and engage with us playfully.
It's really fun after a show to have people call out to us and say wado to say thank you, or osio to say hello. And they had never heard that word before they saw the show or heard the song, but afterwards it sticks in their head.
Yeah. Last night, actually, we did a performance here of the live show. And at the end, I just thanked everyone in Cherokee and I said, Wado, and walked off the stage. And as I was walking off the stage, a kid in the front row called out, Wado to you. I just love that. That just perfectly summed up everything for me.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you 100%. When you are having fun, it's easier to get engaged with the language versus, sitting and kind of just with book and pen and paper and, reciting stuff. People get bored with that. So I really agree with you. When you make it fun, something like the syllabary, you make that exciting and engaging, people are more likely to remember these things. And so I really, really like what you're doing with this. I think we're going to play a little music video here.
Yeah, so this is just a little bit of the show that's being presented by the Ordway now. Let's say it, sing it, play it. This is the virtual show. And this is just one of the songs that talks about counting to 3.
Noxie doxie, you are a turtle. Don't ever forget it. You may not know how to swim now, but watch me and do what I'm doing. See? One powerful stroke with your arms, sawu. 2 little shakes of your tail, tatli, jo'i. Sawu, tatli, jo'i. Now you try it.
Sawu tatli jo'i. Sawu tatli jo'i. Sawu tatli jo'i. I can count to 3 in Cherokee. Sawu tatli jo'i. Can you count to 3 in Cherokee? Sawu tatli jo'i. You can count with me, easy as can be. Together we count in Cherokee. Sawu tatli jo'i. Sawu tatli jo'i. Sawu tatli jo'i. Sawu. Counting to 1 is so much fun with you, my favorite sawu. Tatli. Counting to 2's what I most love to do. Good golly, sawu tatli jo'i. Counting to 3, just you and me. Sawu tatli jo'i. Sawu tatli jo'i. Sawu tatli jo'i. Sawu. Counting to 1 is so much fun with you, my favorite sawu. Tatli. Counting to 2's what I most love to do. Good golly, sawu tatli jo'i. Counting to 3, just you and me. Sawu tatli jo'i. Sawu tatli jo'i. Sawu tatli jo'i. I can count to 3 in Chalaki. Sawu tatli jo'i. Can you count to 3 in Chalaki? Sawu tatli jo'i. You can count with me easy as can be. Together we count in Chalaki. Sawu tatli jo'i. Sawu tatli jo'i. Sawu tatli jo'i.
Oh, wow. That was great. Very good. Very good. I was singing along as we were going.
I hope everybody was.
Yeah. Well, I saw others too. They were singing along too.
Yeah.
They were very catchy. I loved it a lot.
Thank you.
It kind of reminds me of this other video I saw of somebody doing that. It was Lakota language, and they did a 1, 2, 3 video too. So yeah, very good, very good. So another question I wanted to ask is, in the show you have the turtle, grandmother turtle, slips and is stuck on her back, and then Turtle and Rabbit go on an adventure to help grandmother turtle get back on her feet. And so, how do these characters relate to traditional characters in Cherokee culture?
Yeah, so the characters of Doxy Turtle and G-Stew Wabbit, they show up again and again in Cherokee stories. So they're traditional characters. When I was setting out to create this, I struggled a little bit because I don't consider myself a storyteller. I am a storyteller. I'm a puppeteer, but I didn't want to try to present Cherokee stories in the way that there's many other Cherokee storytellers who are much better at that than I am, and who know a lot more stories than I do. So I wanted to figure out a way that I could create my own story that would be that would reference other Cherokee stories. So that's what I set out to do, and pretty quickly came across the idea of this metaphor for the language of a turtle being on its back and needing some help to get back on its feet. And that to me seems a lot like what's happening with our languages. A lot of indigenous languages are like turtles on their back, and they just need some attention. They need us to pay attention and to help them get back on their feet. And so that became the central metaphor, and the idea of grandmothers, particularly Cherokee culture, like a lot of indigenous cultures, is matrilineal. And so the role of the mother and the grandmother become very, very important in the family and in the life of Cherokee today, as well as Cherokee in the past, and probably Cherokee in the future as well. So it became really clear to me that I created this character of Grandmother Turtle, who the clip we just saw is kind of a memory of back when grandmother was teaching how to count to 3. But currently in the present in the story, grandmother is in trouble. She's on her back, and we need to find her and help her. And so the characters of Turtle and Rabbit, Rabbit is often, G-Stew is the trickster character, and the turtle is more often just almost a straight person in a way, if you think of the classic comedy duo, and that's how we've created the characters in the show. And so Shari plays the rabbit, and I kind of play with the idea of turtles being a metaphor for Cherokee or indigenous culture. And if that's the metaphor of the world that I'm creating, then the rabbit is kind of a friendly ally who doesn't quite get it, doesn't quite understand the world that she's finding herself in, but is able to, through that, we're able to educate, right? And have a conversation about it. And for example, when there's a point in the show where in the beginning where we realize that grandmother's in trouble and needs our help. And the rabbit starts freaking out and raises the alarms and says, "Oh no, panic, panic, where do we hide?" And starts running all over the place. And the turtle's the one to say, "Wait a second, slow down. You don't have to panic. We're going to get through this like a turtle would, one step at a time, and we're going to get there. It's just slow steps, slow and steady. We'll get there."
Yeah, and because I'm not Indigenous, we've made this character of Jistu Wabbit out of the culture, but kind of like a kid from the block that Dog C grew up with. So not in the culture, but around the culture, and a classic sidekick of just going along for the ride with Turtle.
Yeah. And I find that to me, that's very fascinating, because it also works on a level of, it's important to know the traditional stories and to hear the traditional stories. But I think it goes back to the playfulness thing. I think being able to play with the characters of those stories and play with some of the settings of the stories, and just to really, I feel like when people engage with a story and with characters like that, to take it on their own, to play with it, you deepen the connection to those characters and to the story. And so you're able to connect on a even deeper level.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that 100%. Yeah. And, as very similar to Turtle is very important in Dakota society too. And so I really am, these kind of with representing the grandmother and kind of the culture that's crossing over for me. And, I can really see that, with the grandmother Turtle being on the back and needing help, that relates to Dakota and Lakota culture too. So I really like that. Another question I have for you is, the Turtle and Wabbit fly around space in a big turtle ship, which I really like. And there's touches of indigenous futurism. So what are you doing here? Why are you going into the future with this?
Yeah, well, I'm sure you've experienced this too, but so much of our histories as Native people is history. And it's when people think of Native people at all today, they tend to think of us in the past, right? They tend to put us in this box of this is what used to happen. And even Native people do it to each other too. And for a long time, when I was a child growing up, it felt like when I look back, all I heard about Cherokee was, well, this is the way we used to dress. This is the way we used to talk. This is the way we used, and it was all this past. And I always wondered, what do we do now? And so I think one thing that excites me is this new genre that's bubbling up that kind of, I think is inspired by and piggybacks on the Afrofuturism that everybody saw in Wakanda Lives and the Afrofuturism movement that's happening. And now there's indigenous futurism that's happening also, that's imagining a future for indigenous people. And it's hard to put words around how profound that is for an indigenous person to see something in the culture that's out there that imagines a future. It sounds so simple, but it's so profoundly deep. And it's more than just we're still here. It's that we're going to be still here, and so that's all of that has inspired me in creating this. But also, there's a number of other factors. Like I think children also respond, they're products of the culture that we all live in today. And so they're responding to everything else they see on the internet and in movies and popular culture and TV. And we're trying to make this interesting and engaging to them. And on a very practical level, it allows us to go places and do things that we couldn't do. We can take Turtle and Rabbit and put them on this this ship and go out into space and travel through time and go back into the past and tell the story of Sequoia and his daughter Ayoka and how they created the Cherokee syllabary. And then we can get back on the ship and go into the future and see another story that hasn't even happened yet. And then we can go back and forth and land in the present and then go. And so I really am drawn to that idea of kind of time traveling in that way and being able to open up the doors to all the different stories that we can tell. Do you want to add anything to that?
Okay, well, I really do like it. It's very good. I really like what you're saying there about, imagining a future, because like you said, a lot of times people place us in the past tense and history, and instead of present and future. And I think for our young people, it's important for them to imagine what the future is going to look like for them and to start thinking about an Indigenous future. And I'm really excited that you're incorporating that element in here. So another question I have here is music. I really like that song. And then so music is one of the main elements in Say It, Sing It, Play It, and Cherokee. Can you talk about the music in the show, how you use it, and what inspired you?
Yeah. Well, I have to say, growing up, also, I'm of the generation that was the very first generation to watch Sesame Street. And that has, from the beginning of this project, that was kind of where my mind went is, can I make something that was like Sesame Street in teaching me English that would help teach people Cherokee and young people Cherokee? And I actually did a lot of research, and the other show that the other project that was really influential to me as a child was Schoolhouse Rock, which was on television, these little musical clips that would teach everything from English grammar to mathematics and very catchy music. So for me, that's always been an inspiration also. And I actually went into a little bit of a rabbit hole researching the Children's Theater Workshop and how Sesame Street came to be and everything that went into the creating of it. And I got very interested in how to create something on the screen for children that represents all of these different ideas that I had swirling around. And that's, so music was a very central part of it from the beginning. Also, I think when I first started in the very beginnings, I was thinking that this was going to mainly be some kind of storytelling thing that I was going to do with puppets. And all of a sudden, as I started trying to tell the stories I wanted to tell, I found myself singing them, which really shocked me and surprised me because I don't consider myself necessarily a singer. And so I just went with it and let it come. And these songs started coming out. And it was just part of where the direction I was led in. And then in creating the virtual version, we have, because the work we do with Z Puppets over 20 years, we've always incorporated music into our live performances. And we have a musical collaborator that we've worked with for many years, Dave DeGennaro. And so early on in developing the virtual version, I called him up and said, would you be interested in producing this with me? And once I had him on board, everything really locked into place because he is a genius in terms of figuring out instrumentation and making I'm playing ukulele, believe it or not, on all of this. And then he just orchestrates it and fills it out into this whole world that only existed in my head. And I was able to say, yeah, more cowbell, get more cowbell in that or whatever, and he could do it. He could make it happen. Also, the other thing I want to say about the music is that similar to what we've been talking about with the stories, I didn't want to, there's I think almost an expectation that if you are a native artist and you're presenting a native work, that you're going to be presenting it in a traditional way. And to me, that's not authentic to who I am. I didn't grow up. I grew up outside of Cherokee Nation, and I grew up being Cherokee, but not being in the surrounded by the culture. And so it's always two worlds that I've walked in. And so I wanted to be authentic to myself, and the music that I play on the ukulele just for fun is the music that I know how to play. And that's kind of the genre of music that started to come out when I was creating the music. And I toy a little bit with, putting, it's funny because one of the very traditional Cherokee instruments is a turtle shell shaker. That's a shaker made out of two turtle shells put together. And I toyed with the idea of using that. And then I thought, that's just, when you're dealing with a main character who's a turtle and you're trying to rescue grandmother turtle, what does it say to have two dead turtles put together in a shaker? So I couldn't quite get myself to go there. But so I also think it's important to have in this conversation for Native, when we're talking about Native art and Native things, that it doesn't always fit within a simple, easy box that we often are find ourselves put in. It doesn't all have to be beads and feathers and drums, that we can include rock and pop and jazz, and all kinds of influences can come into the art and the work that we do. And it was just really important for me to acknowledge that for myself and to free me up to be able to do it.
We've, for many years, we've been big fans of Keith Secola. He, one of the things he gets across indigenous culture, and also a lot of whimsy, and he can sound like John Prine, like a native John Prine, like in the kind of Americana rock kind of way. And I think he's been a big musical influence.
For sure.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. You're incorporating different things in here, and like you said, it just doesn't have to be like drums or like some kind of traditional instrument. You're including a lot of different elements in there, and there's a lot of a rich history of Native musicians, and so I think to incorporate these instruments in there and different like you said, genre of music, like that's really good. I really like it.
Yeah.
And then I think we were gonna play another music video here, the OCO song.
Yeah. And so this, you're gonna see in this clip, this kind of shows where turtle and rabbit sort of end up in this story of getting to a place where they realize that grandmother's mission for them is to travel through time and space and sing these songs that they now have developed. And to kind of, they fly their ship to different spaces and land and perform. And that's what you're going to see in the song.
Say in Cherokee when you're meeting someone new, there's got to be a different way to say how do you do. When you make a friend in Cherokee, do you really want to know? You just smile and you nod and you wave and then you tell them OCO! OCO, 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 OCO. That's what we say in Cherokee when we want to say hello. OCO, OCO. OCO, OCO. Greetings, salutations, howdy, hi, it's OCO. I ran into an elder friend just the other day. I had to think for a minute before I remembered what to say. I knew she would be proud of me if I just let it go. So I stood up straight and tall, and then I hollered, OCO! OCO, 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 OCO. That's what we say in Cherokee when we want to say hello. OCO, 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 OCO. Greetings, salutations, howdy, hi, it's OCO. Wesa was a kitty cat, just as smart as he could be. He purred and he mewed and he trilled and he even knew some Cherokee. He greeted me each afternoon when I came into my home. One day he rubbed up against my knee and he called out, OCO! OCO, 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 OCO. That's what we say in Cherokee when we want to say hello. OCO, 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 OCO. Greetings, salutations, howdy, hi, it's OCO. Now I've been around this great big world, I've traveled near and far. I've been inside an aeroplane, a steamboat, a train, and a car. But everywhere I visit and everywhere I go, they have a different way to say the same word, OCO. OCO, 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 OCO. That's what we say in Cherokee when we want to say hello. OCO, OCO, OCO. Greetings, salutations, howdy, hi, it's OCO. It's hola down in Mexico and bonjour in Paris. In Hebrew, well, they say shalom, but ni hao in Chinese. In Ojibwe, they say bonjour, yakete in Navajo. But if you want to speak in Cherokee, you can say OCO, 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 OCO. That's what we say in Cherokee when we want to say hello. OCO, 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 OCO. Greetings, salutations, howdy, hi, it's OCO. OCO, 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 OCO. That's what we say in Cherokee when we want to say hello. OCO, 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 OCO. Greetings, salutations, howdy, hi, it's OCO. OCO, yeah.
That was great. I loved it. Very, very catchy. I loved the tune. I loved it all. It was amazing. So,
Thank you.
yeah. I'm gonna be singing OCO later now. All
think
right.
I know we
I
are
like
just about of time, so I want to respect everybody's time. So is there any last can you end on a last question or a last takeaway for folks as we kind of wrap this wonderful conversation? And thank you again to Chris, Shari, and Šišóka about doing this whole native language revitalization conversation. I wish we could talk for more time, but I've definitely learned a lot as an adult that I did not know. So I would just like to just input that this is definitely not just for kids. I know the focus is kids, but definitely anybody of any age can start with this information. So any last words or takeaways that you want us to know?
Well, one thing is just that the streaming version will be on the Ordway's through the Ordway's website through the end of November, and we've partnered with them to offer free access for Native American groups and schools and individuals. So if anyone wants access to seeing the show, they can contact us at info@zpuppets.org.
Also, just I close the show with a song that just talks about that indigenous languages are all around us, and we just have to open our ears and listen for them. And they're literally all around us in this country. Everything is named after something indigenous. Or taken, yes.
Yeah, taken or named. But yeah, I would say thanks to both of you for doing this amazing work. Look forward to seeing what you come up with next. And also, like you said, the indigenous languages, they're all throughout the whole world, not just here in the United States, but everywhere, you know. And I encourage everyone to figure out the indigenous people from your area and try to support them as much as you can.
Wado.
Wado, Pidamaya.
Pidamaya.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody, once again. And thanks, Chris, Shari, and Šišóka. Thank you so much for your time. And Wado.